Now, it's truly tough to believe that the PS5 just turned 5 years old, and we're already hearing murmurs about the PS6 possibly releasing in late 2027. But the PS5 clearly has a ton of life left in it yet, as evidenced by this list of hotly anticipated games that are due to be released for Sony's lush hardware over the next 12 months. And all of these were voted by us, the FGS team, no less. So if you've got a problem, complain to us directly, I guess. And you know what? Usually we do top 10s, but this time we're bumping things up to 11, my friend, because of the fact that it's Christmas time. You deserve an extra entry. Plus, we couldn't decide amongst ourselves. From fantastic-looking third-party franchise titles with established PlayStation heritage to exclusives that you'll only be able to play on the PS5 at launch. Now, release dates can shift as ever, of course, but it's easy to be confident that these games will all hit their planned windows within the next year, and in turn, grow out the PS5's already phenomenal gaming library. Oh, and by the way, there's no GTA 6, COD, or EAFC entries here because, come on, that's just too bloody obvious. So with that in mind, I'm Jules, this is FGS, and these are the 11 most anticipated PS5 games of 2026. Number 11, Ballad of Antara. Ballad of Antara might actually seem a bit too good to be true, but if it lives up to its potential, this free-to-play action RPG could be one of 2026's most talked about titles. The story unfolds in a distant land where a mist-like phenomenon has devastated the world, leaving you to embark on a journey to bring it all back to life.
I pray for their grace, but all that came were inferior shades.
Now, the key gameplay hook here is the Para, a dangerous otherworldly version of the regular world which you'll need to explore in order to progressively liberate your homeland. The chaotic combat and art direction look absolutely stunning throughout. So it's perhaps little surprise that the gameplay reveal trailer has racked up well over 1 million views on YouTube. And in addition to offering multiple player characters, or emissaries as they're known, Ballad of Antara also boasts co-op play for up to 3 players. Now, it does remain to be seen how the inevitable monetization will be implemented to justify the gratis model, but if Tipsworks Studio can get the balance right, this could be a free-to-play game with real staying power. Ballad of Antara is expected to release in 2026 and will also be available on PC. Number 10, Reanimal. As featured in the Future Games show's Most Wanted showcase, Reanimal is the latest horror adventure game from Tarsier Studios, the twisted geniuses behind the first 2 Little Nightmare games. Now, if you thought that Little Nightmares 3 was lacking a little of that special sauce that made the series great, that's because Tarsier didn't actually make it, passing the baton instead to Supermassive Games while they cooked up their own original IP. That said, Reanimal doesn't appear to be straying that far from the style and tone of Little Nightmares, revolving around 2 diminutive characters, a brother and sister, as they fight to save their friends and escape a hellish version of their town. But much like the IP that put them on the map, here you'll need to solve puzzles, explore and take on grotesque enemies, with the game also being playable both solo and co-op. But there are a few key differences to Little Nightmares here though. Reanimal, for example, will boast a more dynamic camera system. Both characters will speak, and a boat can be used to explore locations in a non-linear fashion. That's right, a boat is the main selling point for this game. I'm doing it in justice. It looks great. I played it. It was fantastic. The set-piece design also looks a little more cinematic and adventurous, hopefully indicating that this will be a major step up for the studio and the players experiencing it. Number 9, Zero Parades for Dead Spies. Sony has scored quite the console-exclusive coup with Zero Parades for Dead Spies, the much-anticipated new CRPG from Disco Elysium developer Zaum. With a similar art style and all-around vibe, Zero Parades is clearly a card-carrying spiritual successor to Disco Elysium, this time centered around a down-and-out spy who attempts to convince her former teammates to regroup for a new dangerous mission. Now, from what we've seen so far, Zero Parades seems to retain the cynical tone of its predecessor, complete with a similar isometric aesthetic, while also offering players innumerable options to move the story forward. Expect a thought-provoking and unexpected story filled with unforgettable characters and encounters that are designed to stress you the hell out. While some Disco Elysium fans have understandable skepticism about Zaum in light of the studio's major internal strife in recent years, at the very least it looks like Zero Parades is carrying the torch forward with a worthy follow-up. Number 8, Pragmata. Capcom returns with Pragmata, their first new console IP since Dragon's Dogma back in 2012. Now, Pragmata is a sci-fi action game that was announced in 2020 and originally intended to launch in 2022, yet despite reports of it being quietly canned, Capcom has persisted with what might be one of their most distinctive games ever. Here, players take control of Hugh, an astronaut who finds himself stranded on a lunar research station. Here he has to team up with Diana, an android resembling a young girl, in order to face off the station's hostile AI forces and make it back to Earth. But the big hook here is that you'll control both characters at the same time. You'll use Hugh to navigate the world and fire upon enemies, and use your little android buddy to hack into robotic foes in real time to expose their weak spots on their armor. This effectively means that you'll be doing a lot of plate spinning, but it also looks pretty bloody good. Now, it sounds busy, but if Capcom can get the balance right, it could actually result in a totally unique gameplay experience. Now, the publisher has stressed that Pragmata will feel different from other titles that they've released because it's actually the brainchild of a new, younger developmental team bringing their own panache to the table. And if this is indeed the next generation of Capcom at work, well, it sure looks like the future's bloody bright.
There you are. All better.
Number 7. 007 First Light. More James Bond games have been released on PlayStation hardware than any other platform, and so it feels just right to play 007 First Light on the PS5. This new Bond game exists in an entirely new continuity with no footing in any prior movies, instead taking inspiration from Ian Fleming's original novels and stories. First Light will depict James Bond's origin story as he embarks on the mission to earn his license to kill, with Dexter original Sin star Patrick Gibson portraying 007 in the making. The game is also being developed by Hitman's IO Interactive, who have stated their desire to make First Light far more than a mere cinematic blockbuster, with players encouraged to find more elegant, non-violent methods to make progress. All the same, this is a gorgeous-looking game that feels like a same but different take on the Bond we know, giving fans everything they expect from the IP, but through a more thoughtful and deliberate lens. Plus, IO is planning this to be the start of a trilogy, so here's hoping that it hits hard right out of the gate. And it's going to be doing so when it drops on March the 27th, 2026.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Number 6. Phantom Blade Zero. Phantom Blade Zero may look like a strong contender for 2026's hottest Souls-like, but developer S-Game insists that it isn't a Souls-like at all. Rather, it's an intense action RPG inspired by China's genre of martial arts fiction known as wuxia. Players take control of elite assassin Soul, remember, not Dark Souls or Souls-like, but just Soul here, who is framed for the murder of his order's patriarch. After being gravely wounded during the ensuing manhunt, he's temporarily healed, giving him 66 days to try and clear his name. From what we've seen of the astonishing gameplay footage released so far, Phantom Blade Zero offers up a gorgeously frenetic combat which S-Game has promised will be uniquely punishing, even with the battery of offensive and defensive options that are available to players. One aspect, for example, that differentiates the game from so many other action RPGs is the approach to traversal. For one, players will be able to run across walls in order to close the distance between targets before going in for the kill. Phantom Blade Zero isn't a game that'll offer gentle onboarding by the looks of it, but those that like the tough but fair style of game will definitely have this ticked as a must-play. Number 5. Onimusha Way of the Sword. Onimusha was one of the gemstone franchises of the PlayStation 2, with Capcom releasing each of the first 4 mainline entries on the console. The supernatural samurai series has laid frustratingly dormant for the last 2 decades, but next year Capcom is finally bringing it back with the long-awaited Onimusha Way of the Sword. The new game will introduce a new protagonist, Miyamoto Musashi, as he explores Kyoto during the Edo period and fends off both rival swordsfolk and demonic entities alike. It all sounds very par for the course for the franchise, and that is no bad thing. Capcom has assured fans that while Way of the Sword will make the most of their coveted RE engine to update Onimusha for a new generation, it won't be deviating from the tried and true experience that fans love. That is to say that they've confirmed that the new Onimusha will not be an ultra-difficult Souls-like, nor will it be an open-world 50-hour slog. Rather, it's going to be a relatively linear 20-hour experience with some open areas and side quests for those who actually crave them. It sure sounds like Way of the Sword will be retaining the series' core ethos while giving it an aesthetic and mechanical upgrade, which is probably a best case scenario, all things considered. Number 4. Judas. Judas is the first title from Ghost Story Games, the studio led by BioShock creator Ken Levine. Though the BioShock franchise had its console beginnings on the Xbox, Levine has clearly had a fruitful relationship with Sony, given that BioShock's Big Daddy even showed up as a playable character in 2012's PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale of all things. As for JUDAS, it's a new first-person immersive sim taking place on a spaceship carrying the last survivors of humanity to Proxima Centauri. The entire society on board the vessel is run by computers, with 3 separate factions continually vying for control, until that is the titular protagonist sparks a revolution that throws everything into turmoil. JUDAS has been in development since 2014 and is ambitiously built on the foundation of so-called narrative Legos. Levine has designed the story to be modular, resulting in a game that can offer complex permutations on repeat playthroughs. Now, there's still so much that we just don't know about this game, but we do know that it will be strictly a single-player affair with a higher difficulty level than the BioShock games, all while featuring a similar balance of traditional weaponry and ability-based attacks.
J stands for Judas.
Number 3. Saros. Never one to go the predictable path, Returnal developers Housemarque have done away with an obvious sequel in favour of an entirely new IP. That being said, Saros is very clearly a spiritual successor of sorts to Returnal, a similarly adrenaline-soaked third-person action game with an otherworldly sci-fi setting, awe-inspiring bosses, and magnificent weaponry. Mike Flanagan regular Rahul Kohli will portray protagonist Arjun Devraj, a soldier sent to explore the lost off-world colony of Carcosa, where he comes face-to-face with alien threats. Now, though this game will feature bullet hell-flavoured action with roguelike elements similar to Returnal, the devs have also indicated one major difference, and that is resource and progression will be permanent across runs rather than being reset every time you die. Returnal was such a colossal step up for the developer that there's little reason to doubt them outdoing themselves here once again, and from its aesthetics to its gameplay, this looks absolutely stellar, and could very well be one of 2026's earliest Game of the Year contenders.
Hold up for me. I will find you. I promise.
Number 2. Resident Evil Requiem. Sony have been firm friends with Capcom for decades now, and one of their all-time most fruitful collaborations has been the Resident Evil franchise, which of course was popularized by launching on the original PlayStation. 3 decades later, we're eyeing up the imminent release of the series' 9th mainline entry, Resident Evil Requiem, where players take control of new protagonist Grace Ashcroft as she investigates a series of bizarre deaths at Raccoon City's eerie Wrenwood Hotel. There's much excitement that at least some of the game will be set in the post-apocalyptic ruins of the series' iconic setting after it was nuked to dust all the way back in Resident Evil 3. And while the gameplay we've seen so far seems familiar for recent entries, Capcom have introduced one fun wrinkle, and that is that players will be able to switch between a first-person and third-person perspective anytime they want. Capcom have also emphasized that Grace will be less combat-capable than most of the series' protagonists, though, of course, rumors abound that we'll also get to play as a more action-oriented franchise mainstay, Leon S. Kennedy. As ever, we'll have to wait and see about that though. But we won't have to wait long, because Requiem releases on February the 27th, 2026, and will be available on PC, Xbox X, Series and S, and Nintendo Switch 2.
Grace, I promise you I will explain this all to you one of these days.
And number 1, Marvel's Wolverine. After dazzling PlayStation owners with their 3 Spider-Man games, Insomniac is back with a hotly anticipated superhero romp based on everyone's favourite claw-fingered Hellraiser. Marvel's Wolverine will exist within the same continuity as Insomniac's Spider-Man series, but there is one big difference. This is going to be R-rated. That is to say, Insomniac won't be giving us a sanitised, declawed Logan, and the reveal trailer made it clear beyond any doubt that this game will also feature a fully unrestrained Wolverine that is capable of dismembering and spilling the red stuff like a bull in a bloody wine shop. Following in Hugh Jackman's footsteps, Logan will also be portrayed by fellow Aussie Liam McIntyre. And while we don't know much about the story yet, we do know that Mystique and Omega Red will appear in it. Considering that Insomniac has been responsible for some of the greatest superhero games ever made, there's little reason to doubt them expanding their ongoing universe of Marvel games in totally kick-ass fashion. And Marvel's Wolverine is set to release in late 2026 exclusively for the PS5. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 11 most anticipated PS5 games of 2026. Hope you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram and Blue Sky, where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there, my friends. Hope that you're doing well, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye.